Do so you're except for Alex, you're all coming out to Startup Drinks on Thursday. Alex is apparently going to a podcasting event of some sort.
What's the podcasting event?
Uh-oh. Well, now I feel badly. You know that. So, well, you know that the Investor Drinks is literally my favorite thing on the planet. That's the reason why Craig can't get rid of me, because I have no social life. So I look forward every month to this event. But occasionally,
it is really nice. Yeah, you see everybody. You see so many of the people you know from the community, and get to see. Right? Yeah, totally.
I don't know, Will. It feels like high school again.
Yeah. Depends. Yeah.
Whatever. I'm just gonna go hang out at the Blockbuster, so don't worry about
it.
Yeah. So welcome back to. Go ahead.
Say hi. Hello. Gonna have a bath? Gonna have a bath? She's stunned.
Who are all those people? What's going on? So, thank you for taking the time, everyone, to be part of Startup Faceoff. And we might as well, because these discussions always go longer than we want, because we always have a lot of good discussion and debate, we might as well jump into it right away. And I want to start with the person on my left, on my right, Bob from Futurepreneur. How you doing, Bob?
I'm good. How are you, Craig?
I'm doing great.
In recognition of past work hours, I wore my Star Wars sweatshirt. I hope that's okay. Because my Futurepreneur one's in the laundry and I didn't time this well, but nonetheless, I've got my Star Wars sweatshirt.
We're a community full of geeks. It's okay.
I knew it.
And Alex from Consulta.
Hello. You can't get rid of me. Hello. I'm everywhere all the time. Thanks for having me back, Craig, and not kicking me off your show. Because I had a good time last time, but always have more to say. So, I'll be the filler. I'll have an opinion for every week, all the time. But this is again like a favorite. This is really exciting. Love just talking to you guys, and I can't wait for tonight's topics. I'm very excited. There's a lot in there, so I don't know. You got 4 topics, and each one to me is an episode. So I'm pretty excited to get the little debate battle happening. We'll see if we get some arguments going too, or if it's going to be a lot of groupthink. I'm debating I can't wait to see if we're going to agree or not and how that's going to go.
And Will Greenblatt, one of the best pitch coach or the best pitch coach in Toronto. How you doing, Will?
Good. Very, very good. It's really fun to be here. I am so new to this whole thing. So don't know really how it goes, even though I've seen a little bits and pieces of the other thing. So I'll be the newbie here, but I'm really excited to kind of see how it is. And I don't even know what the topics are. But I'm ready to go.
You didn't get the email. Good. All right.
I did not, but I'm raring to go. I'm just going to take the contrarian position. Whatever anyone says, I'm just going to dig my stick in the ground super hard against it.
I love it.
Hopefully happy then.
I was like, but Will, that's what I usually like to do. I don't do any research or prep, and then I come and just offend people with whatever they say. I disagree.
With no information.
Oh, mercy.
So let's get right into it. With the first question, with AI voice cloning startup 11 Labs now ventured at over $1 billion. I think it was over 1.1 billion. And others looking for similar valuations. I saw an AI company just announced 23 million raised here in Toronto. Out of Creative Destruction Labs. Are we about to see the AI bubble burst? Are we at peak AI?
Who's going first, guys?
No.
I
meant no. I'm not. But now I'm in. So they're not in. What's interesting is, some of us here are a bit longer in the tooth, so we've seen valuations and industries change, right, over some period of time. And again, I don't have the same in-depth background that Craig and Alex have in this industry, but my experience generally when we see these sort of industry fluctuations or when we see valuations go up and down, it's usually reactive based on surrounding factors, right? Outside factors. So we think about economy, we think about technology, exactly. I don't know that AI can go as up and down as quickly as what we've seen in the past, whether it's real estate, whether it's the .com bubble, etc. I think there are so many sub variants and sub levels to AI that we might see it slow down. Like certainly we might see it sort of not see the explosive growth, but I have trouble seeing this bubble burst anytime soon because there's just so many variations of its application, right? That's just my thought.
I have a different approach to it. I think we're 6 months, maybe a year away from this bursting because an AI voice cloning startup worth at 1.1 billion. How many voice cloning software have each of us looked at on our own?
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Dozens.
so yeah. So I'm saying is, you know, these things aren't unique as they once were, and that these apps are becoming a dime a dozen. I don't think we're going to stop hearing about new AI and new functionality. I think we're going to see a lot less of this type of valuation because people are going to realize that it's easier and easier to build these tools. Everyone's doing it.
True. But again, remember, there are so many variants of AI. So for example, that speech recording AI, great. But then what if there's like speech recording in different languages, speech recording in Klingon? Like what, you know, there's so many different variants that can come, Craig. I agree with you that we will see this bubble slow. I don't think it's going to burst anytime soon. Just too many variants to choose from.
And I guess there's also like, there's the sort of, you know, we often look at things in terms of like, what's a good product or what's a good use case and what has a real market. But there's so much speculative investment in being like, I got to get in on AI. And so, you know, like what happened with crypto, everybody's just like, I know nothing about this and I'm going all in. And so like that kind of inflates all these valuations and stuff. So I imagine that there's a lot of that right now too. People who sort of give a cursory glance at kind of business headlines and they go, I know I should invest. AI seems to be the hot new topic. This seems to be a company everybody's excited about. You know, I'm gonna invest, but that doesn't mean that the product or has even a market or there's a good use case that people will continuously pay for, you know?
Okay.
I'm going to be annoying and actually agree with all of you and play it safe, but then still be annoying about it because I think, you know, Will, what you just said is really interesting. Like, I think AI is a bit different than a lot of the other kind of like tech bubbles that we've seen because it's not like vaporware and smoke and mirrors. And you're like, it's different and it's not like the concept of like 5 or 10 years ago where everybody's like, oh, you know, what's this theoretical? Like when everyone got obsessed with big data and machine learning, like it was very theoretical and a lot of buzzwords, but it is different now because to, you know, Will, as you said, like, there are 1,000 tools, but they actually exist and they're there. And I think to go back to then Craig and Bob, I'll agree with both of you because I think, like Bob said, there's, you know, I don't think the bubble's going anywhere anytime soon. There are just so many tools. Like we were just chatting before, Will, you got here, comparing notes on a couple tools ourselves here in the background. And right, like it's amazing. I think we're in like the age of AI. For me personally, I'm in AI overload because I like geek out and love this stuff. So I have so many tools that I'm like, I find the hardest part being like choosing which one to use for each task. Because it's like, oh, I need to generate some content. Should I use this one or that one? And as Bob said, you know, like, do I want this one because of these features? And like, I want to write this in Klingon and because I want this to optimize. And so like kind of picking the tool for the job is the hard part. But to agree with Craig. Now he's going to placate everyone. But at the same time, I think what happens, although what do I know? Literally nothing. And again, I have not done any research. This is just a totally unbiased, very biased, unfounded opinion. I think that these kind of markets are what kind of create the opportunities when we do see like single products and firms kind of emerge as victorious. So like we'll see 20 different AI tools that are doing pretty well. And then one, for whatever blessed numbers of reasons, comes out and emerges as like the champion, right? And I'm just thinking selfishly, like a little example, you know, like when you were talking about 11 Labs now, and it's creepy because it's true. There's so many like voice cloning tools that are available, right? And they're, you know, it's like, how do you pick and choose? So I do think this could be that opportunity where people like in the know, so people who become like regular users might still end up having the lesser known ones and using them. and those tools will hopefully like continue to exist and be refined and add more features. But then you end up with one, maybe it is 11 Labs, but you end up with one who emerges as like the common one for the common user. So kind of like the example that I was thinking of was actually Canva, where, you know, like, I don't know about you guys, I had subscriptions to like social media graphic design templating software for years. It's great, you know, not Canva, but a few other ones that I picked up licenses for. And it's been so nice, right? You plop in your little brand kit and whatever else, and boop, there you go, you know, integrate some stock and slap together all your visuals in 5 minutes. And there are, you know, I'm sure hundreds of those that are available now. And yet we live in this era where now pretty much like Canva has really recently just become absolute industry standard, right? But at the same time, I think people who do this, and Will, you would see that a lot probably, right? With people, with founders that you're coaching, like, you know, there are people who are still in the marketing space who might need something that's more specific, like to Bob's point about Klingon again, right? So like, I think it's just really interesting when this happens, because I think what we might see in the AI space is having like one or two kind of champions, these big products that emerge as the ones that get all the traction. But there's still hopefully space for all the others who can focus on something that's really unique about their product or service. They might just not reach that like wild unicorn market appeal.
Okay.
So we have the couple of comments here, but I like this one. Beep boop. I haven't even came into the market yet, and there's value at whatever. When I say the bubble burst, I think it's a valuation thing. You know, we said crypto, but you put blockchain in your name a few years ago, and your valuation doubled, right? So this is a situation where, is a voice cloning startup worth $1.1 billion when there's literally dozens of them out there that, you know, we've come across in our, never mind, you know, actually looking to see which is the best voice cloning software out there. So as these tools start to evolve, I think the valuations only can come down. There's some of these that'll go up because maybe they're unique in certain ways. But I also think that we're going to start bumping into limitations where we're going to see the error rate start getting high enough that it becomes problematic outside of certain fields. So when we talk about, for example, this Rabbit R1 device looks amazing, but the thing that I like is this large action model that's supposed to be behind it, that's supposed to be delivered after the device sometime. So is that actually going to come to fruition?
After the device?
Yeah, this is the part
no.
of it.
Sorry, now I'm really depressed. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Did you order one? Oh, there you go.
Round 4. Yeah.
Awesome. The device itself is interesting. I care less about that than more about the large action model, which is supposed to do stuff on your behalf, where a lot of this stuff can create words and talk for you. The large action model does stuff. I don't know if you've looked at any of the demos, but as an example, he points his camera at his computer. He's doing a spreadsheet. He says, take this, add the data for anybody who mentioned this in their comments, and add a column for that. The device does it and emails him a new spreadsheet with the column, and he emails it back and asks it to do other things. So once you can start getting to the point of asking AI to go log on, publish stuff for you, do whether it's a voice command or automatically, this becomes extremely, there's a lot of things I would like to automate, but this is when I talk about when the error rate starts to potentially become risky, because when it's doing stuff and publishing stuff that's not right, publishing error stuff, when it's making these mistakes, what we call hallucinations. I've talked to lots of AI founders, and you know, AI collapse is a real thing. It happens, and they don't know why. And so I think we're going to be bumping up to some of these limitations, and this dream world of all. To me, I've been around a while, like Bob said.
I didn't say you've been around. I said some
of us.
I've been through this in the 80s. It was called smart systems. And if you put AI in your name for a couple of years, you know, your valuation went through the roof. And a few years later, no one wanted to talk to you because we bumped in the limits. It wasn't going there. And none of the investments went very far. So I think go ahead.
sorry to cut you off, Craig, but I
Yep.
just wanted to react to something Alex said, which was like, these ideas of, there's going to be a product for the masses and then maybe more specific ones for different businesses or industries or job titles. Coming from the world of like solo founders or early stage startup founders, I understand that's not the whole, the whole world by any means, as much as we think it is sometimes. But I just think about the way I work and the kind of business transactions I'm involved with. I really, really dislike it when I know somebody's sending me something automated. Like, even if it's something that their VA sent or something that they sent stock. And so I think about like how much kind of reputational damage will happen with the overuse of AI. And I'm wondering if we're going to see a bubble bursting or a sort of pendulum swing back towards authenticity and doing things more manually and analog. I mean, I think about like these retreats where people are paying thousands of dollars to have somebody take away their phone so they can just exist in the present moment, and like that to me sort of suggests that these things do kind of come in these pendulum motions.
I think that's really interesting. We'll talk about humanity, because the whole point of AI is to replicate humanity, right? The idea is that we're not supposed to detect it's a VA or it's not actually them, right? That's some of the purposes of some of the AI things. And the other interesting thing about humanity is, and especially when Craig talks about investors, I don't like to think of the present. I always think about like that next generation of user of AI and that next generation of investor. And I think what I understand as why an investor invests isn't going to be valid by the time, in the next 5 years even, because we're going to have a new generation of investors that have different thinking. But going back to your point, well, that's the whole point, is how do we, the less automated it feels, the more success it's going to be, right? So I would agree with you. I do agree with you that humanity is always, this need for human connection is always going to be important. But that's why we have things like, well, VR is not at that state yet, but that's why we have movies that talk about VR that replicate pretty much the real world. So that's my only concern there.
Somebody said, sorry, Alex, I just wanted to react to this comment. One of our classes has 800,000 students. I'm not sure how many smiley faces the instructors can place on papers without the use of automation. I have so many questions about that comment. First of all, what the fuck class are you in that has 800,000 students? I need to know some context there. And second of all, I mean, smiley faces are great. Everybody loves a smiley face. But what is the value of that smiley face?
Fair. Yeah.
What is the value of the teacher talking to you and saying, hey, I noticed your work has been falling off recently. Is anything happening at home?
Yeah.
What is the value of that human interaction with a teacher versus an automated smiley face that 800,000 other people get? That's the kind of thing I'm thinking of. I know everybody is obsessed with scale and everybody is obsessed with, and I know I'm the old, like,
you're the old.
I'm the old thinking person. I'm the one who can't just jump on the AI train and start choo-chooing down the track as fast as everyone else. But it really, really, I think, bothers me on a deeply humane level that everybody is just going for scope, magnitude, and scale versus human interaction, which is so important for our happiness and our meaning and our ultimately why we're here on this planet. That's my rant. So I'll back.
No, and you're absolutely right. But again, I think this question from Craig comes from the idea of, is this bubble going to burst from AI investors because they don't necessarily use emotion in their thinking the way you and I would think. Yeah, when I see my children engage with their best friend beside them on text, I cry. But this question isn't about what you and I think is right, because I agree with you. Human connectivity is important. I mean, without human connectivity, that, especially since COVID, that's why you see an increase in depression, increase of self-harm. But that's a whole other topic. The whole point is, investors are going to see that this is going to replicate and automate human activity so well. Craig, I don't think it's 6 months to a year. It is still going to take a while to get to the place of like iRobot, or not iRobot. Was that the movie? Whatever, the Will Smith movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to add that, Will, for sure. But I'm on your side. I just know.
I agree with you. Like, logically, realistically speaking, you're correct. Morally speaking, I just have that, like, I have that drum to beat because I'm just so and I'm in the tech world. So everybody's like, woo, AI. And I'm just like, Jesus, can we just fucking put some brakes on the train a little bit? Like 2%.
Well,
Yeah.
So first of all, just before we get in, I am older than dirt, according to my buddy Trevor Short there.
Oh no!
I win the old category.
Users, that's horrible.
And we have some more feedback for you on your comment there.
Don't say Bob.
Will.
Okay, good.
How do we know to give attention, when it's remote like this? What would happen if we knew what indicators to look for? What if we knew what type of attention people needed? It's like these are, when you're doing remote, and this comes to a secondary conversation I'm going to have in a minute about remote work.
Yeah.
How do you give this attention to 100 people? And I agree with you that the more you can do the personal thing, and this is why I really like getting together face to face, doing our startup investor drinks, doing our co-founder meetup, matchup events and stuff, because it's completely different than doing a group thing or doing something like this, and the intimacy is much higher. But these tools, automated tools, are for a lot of things. So I agree with you that we need to be personable, but I get it to draft up agendas for me. One of the things I like AI to do is create a lot of social media for me. I've got a lot of text to do because I have 3-4 live events a week, online and in person, and I have partners that I want to share social media with to get them to share. So I've got 100 tweets to create about 100 events that are all different. So that's when I start using something like AI to say, all right, how much of that'll get used? How much of that actually works?
You're only using 5% of what AI is, right?
No, I'm just saying from a personal point of view, where do you draw the line of personalizing something versus using AI to get to the masses?
I would ask you about Replica, right? The Replica app. Have you seen the Replica app?
No.
So the Replica app is designed to create connectivity for lonely people. And I will tell you, it may be more used for nefarious purposes than I would like, but nonetheless, it is this sort of, it creates this boyfriend or girlfriend that you can have regular chats with on your cell phone, and it's meant to feel, because it learns from you, so it's meant to be more authentic. So I'm with you, like the business side of AI, yeah, but I can't, there's so much more to learn about human connectivity and how AI is going to try and replicate that. Yeah, man, that bubble ain't burst anytime soon. Like, what
was the name of that company? Replicant?
Hold on. I don't know.
I say that because
friend of a friend.
My first startup when I came to Toronto was called Simple Suitor, and we created situations that surprise and delight. And one of our product was the fake boyfriend, fake girlfriend that would text you, would send pictures, would do stuff. So it was for all sorts of reasons. Like somebody wanted to pretend they're in a relationship for any number of reasons, or they wanted to feel good about themselves. But so it continues to happen. It just becomes more and more automated and scalable. But at the same time, like Will says, you really have to work at getting good output out of AI that's not verbose, that doesn't sound like, just not how it doesn't sound like people speak.
Yeah, I got you. That's fair.
Okay, before Craig, you go change the topic, because he does this, he surprises you, and then like the moment is lost. So that's a good one. I need to add to my tirade, my little ramble here, because you all had so many good points that I cannot leave. Will, it's funny when you were like, you're kind of playing devil's advocate. And if you hadn't said what you had, I would have taken your position. But since you said that, now I'm going to counter you. So,
yes.
Because similarly, like we use a lot of AI and automation, and to be honest, what I've noticed is that frankly, like some of the tools do it better. Some of the outreach tools and the tools that we're using now for mostly on the sales and outreach side, but it applies in many areas. Like the work of the AI, because they're like specially trained and built for that purpose. Like they're better than the humans. And I think, Bob, was it you who said about kind of the concept of duplication, right? And like kind of that's, it's like AI is taking over. I guess I guess like that actually, to me, I don't see that as a bad thing. Like for me, I'm, I guess like I am an early adopter. I'm like waiting for someone to give me a chip and an implant, sign me up. But I know this is terrible. But like I think there's place for all of us to play. Like I do think to your, the technology is not perfect enough. We can't let it go, as you said. Like we can't be hands off. But I still think, like, I think we as humans still have immense value, and that's in like the bookends. So that's like coming up with the ideas and giving direction. Like, what do I need? What am I writing? What is this about? What's the purpose? And then on the other end, in like reviewing and editing and like looking at outputs. And so I think we still have a lot of value there. But I think that like the value of AI is in that not only can it duplicate the work of humans, but it can improve. Like it can do things better than we can. And we're limited by our own intelligence, and that's what I think is so cool about like iRobot and all the futuristic films. Is it like, and that's what's really interesting about generative AI instead of just like out of the box AI or machine learning or big data. It's not just the data, and it's not just taking the data and looking for patterns. It's actually like letting that true intelligence evolve so that it can do more than we can do, and actually like supplement and enhance kind of our own potential as humans, which I think is really cool. It's still scary, and like I do think I'll be killed by robots, but I think it's still but in the meantime it's pretty exciting.
I think AI, I think as long as we evolve with AI evolving, you're right. If we become stagnant like those humans in WALL-E, and we're just in those for sure. But as we evolve and they evolve, then I can see it. By the way, every time you kept saying it just does it better, I heard my ex-wife's voice. So we're gonna find different.
Just better. Like, and then just like Craig, the last piece I just wanted to mention, I know this is like unsexy and boring too, but as it relates to valuations, I don't know, you guys know more about that in terms of like an investor mindset and what investors are looking for. But I think you're right. Like Craig, we'll see, the kind of crazy multi-billion valuations like those. I don't think are going to stick around, as you said, like just as it gets more competitive. But I think what'll be really interesting too is to see what happens from a regulatory perspective. And I know that's very boring, but like that's what, like when we talk about blockchain, we talk about finance and fintech, and I think that's the case here too. Like, especially when we see all of the, like, you use the example of 11 Labs and the voice cloning, when we talk about like deep fake and all the crazy like Trump impersonations that are all over the internet right now as we head into campaign season, if there is one company or many who basically gets shut down for anything from a regulatory perspective, or on the flip side, if they get a thumbs up and a backing from any legitimate kind of body, I think that's where we'll immediately see impact from a valuation perspective. Like any company that gets like thumbs up.
I just want to shout out,
like their
Alex,
goal.
to that point. I just want to shout out Fairly AI, who were clients of mine through Techstars. David and Fion, they have a company called Fairly AI, which is a regulatory body that helps companies using AI, as far as I understand it, comply with the governance and the risk and everything. And they just they just got funding and stuff, and so like they're doing well in their own right as their own company as a regulatory body. So I think that also speaks to that speaks to what you're saying, Alex. And I just want to give them a shout out because they're awesome, and they really believe in the dangers of AI, but also believe that you can't put it back in the box. So how do we make sure it's regulated properly? Which I think is very.
So before we jump to the next topic, I just want to make this points from a couple of people. ChatGPT passed the medical school. It would take me a while to do that. But at the same time, ChatGPT could be diagnosing you, and then at the same time decide that we should put a toy car inside your stomach in the middle of the thing it just does this hallucinatory thing and decides, hey, let's put a carburetor inside a human. And so, out of the blue. See, maybe we don't want that. And then it also mentioned,
well, Craig, I would argue we've had Dr. Malpraxis who swear.
Fair enough. And some people might trust a computer or an AI more. And why would we automate travel? Why don't we ride horses to the grocery store? Well, first of all, horses are way too expensive, and they take too much room.
Where am I going to store my horse?
Also, speaking of WALL-E, it's like we are much less healthy since cars came along. So just because it happened doesn't mean it's just a net good. If you think of all the people who die every year because of cars, like there's this fallacy that people, I'm sorry, I always get keyed up. There's a fallacy that people say where it's like, well, this thing happened and we're all still here. It's like, yeah, well, it didn't cause a nuclear apocalypse. It doesn't mean it was a good thing. Like people are like, you know, Gary Vee keeps, love that guy, but he keeps talking about like, there was a thing called the tractor and that came along and it's like, that was devastating. There was a refugee crisis that swept through the United States. Everybody from Oklahoma moved to California and created this like intense immigrant crisis within the United States. There was the grapes of wrath that says it all. It completely breaks down how horrific this moment was in history. And just because it happened, it doesn't mean that it's a great thing that we should all just be jumping up and down about. So that fallacy I keep seeing repeated again and again, that like, well, this thing happened and we don't do it this way anymore. It's like, but that doesn't pass a judgment on whether or not it was good for us, whether that thing happened. Sorry.
Well, I don't think we can't really pass judgment on like good and bad and ethics, right? It's like, that's the nature of innovation and change. Like it's going to happen. It's just a question of like how long it'll take and who's going to be involved and what that's going to look like. Like, and I think that, I don't know, like, it's like super, I think AI is just going to make us all really dumb. Like, I think we're all going to have to learn to like really pretend to like, we're going to have to work hard to not become totally stupid. I'm, you know, like tiny, simple, stupid example, but you know, GPS, right? So like, remember guys, back in the day, you know, and GPS was like kind of, right? Like in the beginning, it was kind of an elitist thing. If you were rich and you had it in a car and you had your like OnStar or Star, whatever else, it was like smaller market. And then like, thank God, you know, really, I assume it was really because of the iPhone and the smartphone revolution that like brought it to being common. And so I don't know about you guys, like I like live in downtown Toronto and used to be really good with geography and directions. And now I cannot find my way to something 3 blocks from here because I don't ever need to. And, you know, I'm worried about that. That happened today. I have ChatGPT do lots of my admin work. I was trying not to use a bad word there. Anyway, and so earlier today, I had this little ugly, you know, spreadsheet that I wanted it to break down for me just because it's filled in rows and I want it in columns and whatever. And, you know, I'm used to sending this over and ChatGPT like had a fit today. I don't know why. Today, it just wasn't able. Today, it was like, no, sorry. And so it gave me, which I think was really appreciated. I appreciated it. It gave me all the instructions for what to do. Oh, you can make a macro and you can do this and that. And I was pissed off. I was like, because now I'm just used to the thing doing it for me. And I was like, what do you mean that you want me to go do the actual work like I used to? You know, and so it's a tiny example, but like, I think that that's, for me, that's the worry is that we're going to have all these amazing tools that can do awesome stuff and then actually stop being able to have skills to do anything on our own.
Yeah, fair enough. But keep in mind, like what you're sharing is more muscle memory than it is intelligence. My belief is that if it allows us to replace muscle memory, maybe it opens up creativity. Maybe we have thoughts and non-institutional driven thinking from academia that allow us to even dream up things.
Careful.
I know.
Radical thoughts.
Sorry. Yeah. I meant in the US. Here, we're great here. Don't worry about it.
We all believe in radical thinking here as entrepreneurs and founders. It's how it goes.
Fair.
So more than 191,000 workers in U.S.-based tech companies were laid off in 2023, and even more are continuing into 2024. And we were hinted at some of this about somebody was saying earlier, I think before we started, that they're really having a hard time finding tech people jobs. So what does that mean for startups? Is this a boon for startups who need talent to grow, or is this a sign of trouble in the economy and things to come, and that a lot of more small businesses are going to fail?
I think it's a good thing for startups, because I think the way startups were traditionally ran was still the Bill Gates 1980s. I think what this is doing is this is teaching our new generation of entrepreneurs, the millennials and the Gen Z, that you need to approach startup from a different modality. So I think it's a good thing, but I talked a lot, so I will yield the floor.
Yeah. Well, I just kind of went through this with my business, even though we're not a tech company, so maybe not quite relevant, but just I sort of saw it from the inside, which was that the layoffs gave us this massive talent pool. So when I was hiring for my company, it was crazy. It was like all these really overqualified people wanted to work for my company. And that was wild. It was like this crazy hirers market. But then what happened to me, of course, was that I was like, great, let's fucking go. And then I overcommitted to taking on people when I should have been more patient. That was my mistake. But it was just really interesting to sort of see that, like, my problem particularly wasn't that I lacked the talent and wasn't that I needed really good people. My problem was a structure problem, I think, which is, as Bob is alluding to, is that if I had a more, streamlined business model and go-to-market strategy, that probably would have been worth more time, energy, resources on, rather than just like collecting all this talent that was not out there and then inventing work for them, and then spending a lot of money on payroll. So that was a really sort of interesting thing that I saw as an employer, was this really exciting dearth of tech talent in the market, but then not a blessing in disguise, whatever the opposite of that is.
Fair. What are you saying, Alex?
I have mixed feelings on this one, to be honest. Like, there's the as the potential employer, and then there's the as a founder freelancer, right? And I don't know. I think on one hand, I think having these like mass exodus and departures, unfortunately, can, for a lot of people, I think it's a bit of a kick in the pants that they need to reevaluate their own, purpose, meaning, goals, life, whatever you want to call that. And I actually think, unpopular opinion here, I think that the giant tech layoffs are actually the best way to do that, because, when you get fired or laid off on an individual basis, it's really different. It really sucks your soul dry. It's pretty difficult. Financially, you really don't know. You might be given 1 week, 2 weeks, who knows? So there is some kind of comfort in a mass layoff. You don't have to have that feeling that it's you and your personal failure. It's much like a part of a broader thing. You're usually going to get a decent package, maybe not a fortune, but depending on, again, the region, right? You're going to get a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year of comfort. A lot of the more progressive companies will also offer, which is new to me, a kind of, what's it called? It's not outsourcing. It's, there's a term for it, but agencies who will partner with you to ease the transition and help you find new roles. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of goodness that can come from it. It sucks when it happens, but I kind of think it's good. And then for a lot of those people, for a lot of people, starting your own thing, becoming a founder or pursuing your own new venture, it's really scary. And you don't really get the opportunity to do that. It's not something that we're taught in school, right? To be a founder and entrepreneur. It's not one of the job choices that you're given. And so I think for a lot of people, it can actually be kind of cool and liberating to be oh, wow, I lost my job. What am I going to do? And it forces you, Bob, you were just saying about being creative. I think for some people, it's it kind of becomes that excuse to finally be well, wait, what do I want to do? What can I do? And it kind of is that, so I kind of think that there's a little bit of a silver lining when this happens. On the flip side, as a sometimes employer, it's, it's frustrating because you do end up with total market overwhelm. So, there goes, whoever it is, Google this day or Spotify tomorrow or whatever. I'm not saying that. I hope it's not. I hope you're all safe.
You're here first.
Don't get me in trouble. I know. Don't blacklist me.
Layoffs at Google. Let me change the banner.
I heard Spotify.
Slash, right? And, I just kind of hate it from an employer perspective because, it's just especially the last 5 years, just in the tech market and kind of the, I don't know what to call it. It's really been an employee market, right? And so you have everyone, anyone with 2 hands and coding skills, was convinced that they needed to make 6 giant figures. And it really built up kind of a lot of ego and expectation. And that's wonderful. These tech giants can afford to pay that, but most of us can't. Breaking news, Craig. You heard it here first.
Yeah. Did he do it? Oh.
Yeah.
So,
Craig,
you know,
you
it's
better
just
put
like,
asterisks. There's something.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Like, where's the disclaimer?
Oh.
Don't get me in trouble. That's right. My web business.
nobody
died.
screenshot
I
this.
killed my own business.
Yeah. I think Alex, and sorry, Alex, I don't know if you want to keep going. I don't know if
I can talk forever. Please cut me off. Please
okay. I want to
in.
go back to the previous point, which is really interesting because we don't really talk about the mental health aspect. And this is only from lived experience. I by no means am an expert in mental health, but I think about a lot of these environments and watching, because I'm a TikTok guy, I watch TikTok, and watching a lot of these staffers just live in toxic environments. And they're never going to leave, because where else can you find a 6-figure salary to work from home and do coding? And I think the other good thing, although it doesn't feel good, is these layoffs and these breaks are allowing people to realize there is another world outside of their toxic office. So I think of high school. In high school, I thought that was your world. Like in high school, when my mom's like, "Don't worry, Bobby, this is not a hole here." And I was like, "No, this is it." But until I got out of high school and realized, oh, there's actually more to the world than I knew. I sometimes think of that in the tech sector. I think people get so caught up in where they are in that toxicity that this forced move is actually good for some level of mental health, because now they can realize, oh, you mean I can do this and maybe I can do that. And so I just wanted to add to your first point there.
Yeah, by the way, just did a quick Google. On January 11th, Google lays off hundreds amid a pledge to reduce costs, and December 8th was Spotify lays off a bunch of people. So
it is fact. It's fact.
Yeah. And of course it is like, yeah. Sorry, Alex.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, again, on the mental health point, is like, it can be really, I mean, it can be, especially if you look at the statistics about like how many people can't afford like a sudden surprise $400 expense, right? Like, and I think, a lot of, there's that, what's the name of that dude, that CEO who's always like talking about like how shitty workers are and how stupid they are and how like
who's that? I have never heard. Who is that?
No, this guy, I think he must be like a troll or something. What is his name? He's always going viral for saying like the most evil rich guy kind of thing.
I think I know who you're talking about.
He's the guy who said like millennials can't buy homes because they buy avocado toast. He was that dude.
Grant Cardone? It's not Grant Cardone.
No. I wouldn't be surprised if that dude said something like that. But this guy, I can't remember who he is or what he does. But
Craig's looking it up right now.
Well, there's maybe Andy Owen.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I
don't want to get it wrong. But
Miller Knoll. He sparked outrage in a video where he told his staff not to worry about getting bonuses.
Is that a man or a woman?
I have no idea.
This dude was a man. Anyways, yeah. Whoever it was, but
you broke. There we go. Yeah. But you were saying, sorry. You were saying.
No. Yeah, sorry. I was just sort of thinking that, like, I agree with you guys so much, and I don't know if you know Naval Ravikant's quote that's like, there's 7 billion people in the world. I hope someday soon to see 7 billion businesses. So this idea of like helping everybody kind of understand that like you can just create your own work and you can go directly to a consumer or you can go to businesses, but like you can do that, and it's actually not as complicated or scary as you think. And I'm definitely on that train of like I want more people to have that knowledge and that information and that courage and excitement, but it's just not going to be for everyone. Like, I would love that if it were, but some people are very risk averse. Some people are very schedule oriented. Some people are really not going to want to like make a bunch of content, and Gerner, is that the dude? Yeah, but
Tim Gerner, there we go.
But I mean, I agree with you. I'm definitely one of those people who's like, I grew up as an artist from a family of artists, and I had no idea how to make money, sell anything, do anything related to business or finances or anything like that. So I feel like I'm so late to the game, but so excited that I've gotten to learn all this stuff through entrepreneurship, and I would love to pass that on to as many people as possible. But certainly just on a human societal level, there's a lot of people who, if one of their parent loses a job, they're not going to be having fun.
Yeah.
Sorry to bring it down.
I think like that's the part that scares me. Like, on the employer side, right, is, and it's off, like, I kind of feel badly saying that, but like that's the risk when you're on the employer side, is it like then you can end up hiring people and bringing people on who aren't the right fit for you. And for them, it is like a stopgap. And I get it. We're human. Like everybody has their bills to pay. You're like, I have myself and my family. I have people to take care of. Your priority is to secure some kind of income. And like, so I totally get it. But that's what I do find frustrating when this happens, is like all these massive layoffs. And then you have people who are just so desperate to like be hired and have an income. And so they pretty much will like take almost anything. And sometimes that's great because it is this like very inspired discovery, right? And they're like, you're saying, they like discover that they actually are an entrepreneur, a founder, and they're like, yes, I'm going to find my way. So that's awesome. But I think that isn't the majority of cases. I have no stats on this, of course. But, you know, I think what happens a lot is people just taking whatever it is, they go do a job, and then, you know, 3-6 months, they're like back out to whatever better, more stable job they found. And while I understand that and respect it for them, if you're the company, if you're the employer, like that sucks for you. Cause like now I just put all my time and money and effort into hiring and training you, and you're gone, and I'm back at zero. So that kind of sucks.
I think that's very true. I don't know that, and I haven't been an employer for long, but I don't know that I see that now as much in millennials and Gen Z. What I see there is now they're part of their decision of just the package is now, do I actually like these people? And I believe in their mission. And so I find they tend to stick around longer. Don't get me wrong. We know from statistics, which I don't have in front of me, that they do job hop. That's just the only way they find naturally how to increase their income. But I think that's the hardest part about certain layoffs, and perhaps not the Googles of the world. But remember, poop flows downhill. There were probably, like, I have to think about automotive, right? So I think about Honda, and I think when Honda or whoever does layoffs, there's always those smaller companies that Honda was their main client, and now they have to do layoffs. So I think there's also this like, oh, I've lost my security. I know whenever I've lost it, I've been fired because I suck as an employee. But like my heart was broken because I liked this vision, right? So when I get fired, it's usually not layoffs. It's usually me, Craig. But it's great. It's like, oh my God, I so loved, you know, this vision and mission. So I think there's a double heartache, right? I don't know if that's true with Google and Spotify, but definitely with sort of these secondary people that are experiencing layoffs, right?
Yeah.
Almost every manager I ever had told me I'm completely unmanageable. So I've been fired.
I think I've been
fired a few times. So.
I'm not even your manager. I think I was like, Craig.
This is a hard one because not everybody recovers, right? And all these jobs aren't coming back right away. So people got to reskill, but people aren't hiring. You know, we were ahead of time talking about an HR person who's trying to get all these people jobs, but there's just not enough jobs to be filled. So that's a lot of people out there looking, and just great if they turned entrepreneurship right away. But it's a bad time when, you know, you're 3 to 6 months into your unemployment or whatever, or your severance, and you're like, okay, maybe I can start a business. Because the first month you're not thinking that. You're a couple of months into emotional stability, and then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to do something. Now, okay, I got to start a company with what money and with what ramp, and who's going to give me money now that I don't have a job. And so this becomes harder, right? Yeah, it's not impossible. It's definitely, like, there are a lot of jobs and startups and a lot of things out there now that you can start creating consulting work, training, get part-time gigs, come to our events and start working with startups. There's all sorts of ways to do work, but let's face it, that's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And so when we have this kind of stuff drop down, the whole economy goes down because there's not enough money being spent out there. You know, we were talking about, is this really, you know, has the inflation stopped? Are we seeing the end of the inflation period, or are we still going to be struggling? Bob was talking about earlier, like, by now we should be seeing some recovery, and we're not really seeing it.
And that was based on my lived experience, right? So I may not have Craig's experience, but I was telling him before the show, I'm like, I don't recall a time when we've not recovered. It's taken this long to recover. Now, I have not been alive that long. I'm sure there has been historically, but yeah, it made me nervous. And if it made me nervous, I can imagine, to Craig's point, who else is getting nervous saying, anyway, sorry, Craig. I want to qualify that so people didn't be like, he's a moron.
No problem at all. And, it's funny because there's a lot of layoffs before Christmas, and that sucks. But I've been in that position as a manager and having to decide, do you lay someone off early January or do you lay someone off mid-December? And it's a tough decision. And I've always fallen on the side of lay them off early, give them more severance, because here's what happens. You go into Christmas thinking everything's fine, spending all sorts of money, racking up the credit card. Then you come in on January 2nd, you get let go. How do you feel?
Yeah.
So, or do you ruin someone's Christmas and say, okay, we're going to give you a severance. I'm sorry that this is happening, but at least your economic situation going into what's happening.
Yeah,
and hopefully
give them agency to make their own decisions. I think that's the main thing. Like, I've seen this, not just, I felt the same way when I had to lay off people for the first time. And it was devastating, and I'd never had to do that before, but I was just kind of like, I'm going to just do it as soon as I make the decision. And because like I could sort of, not do it. Yeah. I was sort of thinking of like, do I do it in the week? And I was like, just once I've made the decision, schedule a call with them as soon as possible and let them know, because me trying to engineer their emotional response just didn't feel right. And just sort of say like, this is what it is. I'm so sorry. And now and you can do what you need to do for your life. And so, it's a really shitty thing to do.
By the way, Will, can I call out your humanity? Because I guarantee you Google and Spotify isn't giving that level of humanity to the people. I'm just
well, it's easier for me because I have I'm a small business, but I agree. And that's the other thing too. We talk about automation is like the not to get too philosophical, but like
let's go.
The way that our system works is the corporate system does not put an ROI on things like humanity or compassion or, the benefit, unless it results in worker productivity or there's some kind of benefit to the bottom line. So like, that's one of those things that why I like to work with startups in general is like, I do work with some corporate clients, and the people that I get to coach are great, but like you just see inside the machine, it's so sterile and impersonal and just devoid of humanity because it's all systematized. And so, that's the other shitty things. Did you guys see that girl who went viral from Cloudflare? I think it was.
Cloudflare,
that she was laid off by these people she'd never met, and they were just like, they outsourced it not to AI but to humans, but it was just as like it might as well have been a robot for like for her experience. And that sort of to me, that's that one thing of like. And what happened to me as well, to take it back to my experience, was we were doing, our whole business model was B2B, not whole business. Most of it was B2B coaching contracts. So we would do these big contracts for companies like Wayfair and Boston Dynamics. And like, we had these great contracts that I foolishly thought were just going to keep going. And, then when the bubble started bursting and these layoffs started happening, of course, public speaking, communication, coaching workshops were one of the first things on the chopping block. And so we lost a whole ton of business, which is why I had to lay the people off. So it was one of those things where the layoffs happened, the talent found its way downstream into my business. I hired, skyrocketed our expenses. And then the people we were going after were like, oh, we don't have any money for this anymore. And so I think in general, like, you got to, cost cutting is important. But obviously if we go too far down that road, then you can just automate and make everything as optimized and efficient as possible. And then we kind of lose out like what we're trying to do as a global economy. It's like support people and make sure everybody has purchasing power and can, can like buy our shit and work for our companies. And, so yeah.
I want to go before I see Craig staring. Don't switch topics because I love it. I know. I was like, oh no, I'm not ready. Just to layer on 2 points. Well, I love what you said. They're related and not. One, I know this is Toronto Starts and we're talking about startups, and I know it's not exactly the same thing, but you just like, I'm very passionate around, you know, discussions around small and mid-sized businesses and like the burdens that we have and that we bear compared to large corporates. And I think, Will, that's what a lot of what you just said really like hit me that way, is that like that's kind of, there's this great inequality, and it's not intentional. Like large massive firms, good for them, they don't set out to be jerks and to do things badly, right? It's a problem of, as you said, like success and scale. Once you hit those thresholds of a large size, like not everything can be managed the same way. But what happens is that, like exactly like you described, that it's the startups and the small businesses who are made up of, you know, small teams of people who care. And then those are the people who end up like having the burden of, you know, like Craig was talking about, like what's better for the person and the impact that it has on the individuals. And like, I love that, because I think that's what's special about startups and small businesses, is that they are real people with faces who care. But the problem is that, like, economically and from a management perspective, that's just like, it's so hard, right? Like it's hard for us. It's even more difficult. Like you already have 1,000 burdens, and like trying to care for everyone and be a good, you know, leader and manager at the same time and run your business in a very like effective, but also, you know, sustainable and ethical way is a challenge. And as you were saying, well, like that's the other thing too. I think hope is not lost. I think that the more progressive large corporates and enterprises are starting to see the value. Like when we talk about sustainability and triple bottom line companies and companies who care, I think for a lot of them, it's like, for a lot of companies, of course, it's still buzzwords, and it's still like we're checking the box on, you know, CSR, corporate responsibility, ESG, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, what am I doing for my board because I have to? But I do think that like truly progressive organizations are cluing in that it's not enough to just be financially profitable anymore, and that like actually dealing with the social and governance side and the environmental impacts of their work is more important, and that hopefully like will include more and more metrics that involve ethics and practices and sustainability. So hopefully we'll see, you know, like success for big firms who can find a way to be successful and profitable and still care and like do good in the world. So like there aren't enough of them, but I think that they're out there and we can like inspire them to keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Me too.
Very good. So based on this, you know, what roles do we think universities should play in nurturing entrepreneurial talent and, you know, supporting students' interest in startups? We're just talking about all the layoffs and how potentially they're unprepared to start their own businesses and whatnot. What role should our universities and then, you know, maybe government organizations like Futurepreneur take it past that? But what role should university play in nurturing that talent and letting people know that startup is an option?
I have so many opinions on this, so I'm going to shut up because I need you guys to talk first. Otherwise, I'm going to go. I'm going to go crazy.
Just to qualify, I can't talk on behalf of Futurepreneur for this. This is sort of my, I just can't, or any organization I work with. But from my own point of view, right, as a University of Toronto student, as someone who has, you know, children who are going into post-secondary studies, I think you almost need like an entire culture shift. I don't know that any post-secondary, I'm not just going to post this on universities. I don't think any post-secondary is in a place where they can do that, because here's my personal lived experience, not tied to any brand I work with, belief is that universities are no different than any other institution we have in Ontario. And it's very difficult to break out of institutional thinking to think entrepreneurially. So to answer your question, Craig, I think it's a culture shift before anything else. Before putting in the Entrepreneur Center, before getting funding, it really is a culture shift. You almost need like a subsidiary of the university that's entrepreneur school, and that's all it is. But that's just my personal opinion. It affects and reflects no one that I work with. Maybe my mom. she agrees.
Will, do you want to jump in? Because I'm going to go off.
Yeah, totally. I don't have. I agree so much with what Bob said too, and I think that, you know, this stuff, you know, starts before university. Certainly, I have some friends who are doing some amazing things in Texas, doing entrepreneur things with kids, and it, like, I think all that shit is so cool, and starting people to really understand how this career path that is so viable, but you know, as we said, culturally is not understood that it is viable, and is seen as either too risky or too selfish or whatever the sort of judgments people have, or like, okay, you're an entrepreneur, you know, whatever, buddy. Does that mean like you just spend all your day at the pool? But what I do think is that the organizations, at least the ones that I know, like DMZ, the Queen's Entrepreneurship Competition, I just spoke with them last week. Like it's really incredible seeing these like 19-year-old kids and the ideas that they have. And, you know, I think there could be a really good pipeline, like just purely from a cynical money-making perspective. Like if the corporations that sponsor, you know, as kind of predatory as they are, you know, we know they just want to descend on these brilliant entrepreneurs and suck up all their ideas and patent them. But like, you know, whoever, whether ethically or not, supporting startups, they can go to those places and say like, sponsor pitch competitions and like go and talk to the founders and see the ideas that they have and support them. And there's an ROI there that maybe, that kind of, I think that, not that I know at all, but I think that kind of exists already in like certain MBA programs. It's like, or law schools or whatever, right? Like you go to this school and then this company comes and they do the fair and then you go work for them. And there's a kind of mutual benefit between the university and the private sector that you know, industry or the different companies that they're going for. So I think that there could be a lot more of that in Ontario. I think Queens is doing it really well. I think, you know, TMU with DMZ is doing it really well, but yeah, more of that, please.
It's changing. Is it changing fast enough? Like with things like Dr. Sean Wise being professor of entrepreneurship at Ryerson now, TMU.
I forgot about. Sorry, my apologies. He's a brilliant culture shift person. Yes,
absolutely. But I think it's not invasive enough, and he's doing that startup school thing that's free that people can go after, and they do record videos, and there's pizza and stuff. Yeah. It's very popular series, and I think they're still doing it. I haven't checked the 2024 dates. We usually promote each other because done some work with them in the past. And Enactus they're doing good things, but it doesn't. So it feels like there's an entrepreneurship program, but it's not necessarily down to the point of view of built in. Like when you're taking accounting, you're not taking accounting from how do I run my own business point of view. It's how I do books for another person. It's when you're you know what I'm talking about, rather than saying it's not built into the classes. Like if you're running a company, this is how you would do things in all the classes.
Yep.
You know, if you're taking an HR class, it's not about you running a company. It's about you working at HR for another company.
Yep.
So nothing wrong with that. It's just that there's a mind shift that needs to happen around ownership of the idea and the whole process to say, okay, this is how it works in a big company, but you know, this is how you could do it on your own. And these are the things. So you start thinking about, I can do this. I remember one of our early meetups, or one of our early startup drink events. I was talking to a young lady, and her founder friend had brought her, and she just couldn't understand someone starting a business from nothing. Didn't understand, like, why would anybody do this? And like, so I'm saying it's not for everybody, right? This whole mindset isn't for everybody, but if you can plant the seed early enough, so I'm not having these conversations about why would anybody do it or why would they want to do it. It's a natural thing. It's a natural option for anybody coming out of school that, hey, I've got these options of starting a business. I've got these options of doing this. I've got these options of going somewhere else, rather than if I'm not in the entrepreneurial program, I'm generally going to go work for someone else.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting when you frame it that way, because then and I hope you don't mind when I look down, when I get anxious, I use my cube, and I'm just getting anxious on this topic because it's like, oh my God. Because I think what's really interesting is that from what I've seen, right, on occasion, I've been very blessed to go into a lot of these post-secondary classes to talk about entrepreneurship, right, with various, and what I think is like, it's interesting, those classes, because when I get them, they're still thinking linear in a linear fashion. And what I'm trying to do in one class is get them to think in a non-linear fashion. So to your point, Craig, I think the embeddedness of it that's a better way than what I said, and a less culpable and firing way of saying what I said, which is like, I think when we talk about culture shift, it's also embedding it in the curriculum. Like, how are we not just visiting one class in a semester, but how are we making it a regular part of the work that we do? So I really want to honor what you said and like really put poise to it, because that's what I find. I go in and I teach, and they're still thinking in a linear fashion, and it's hard to break them out of that cycle.
And just before we hand it over to Alex, part of the reason I like that, because she's got a lot to say, I like the whole understanding what it means from a business owner point of view, is we have a disconnect now. A lot of people might say a feeling of entitlement, people coming out of university and all that. They don't have an education from the perspective of an owner of a business.
Yeah.
What does this mean for payroll? What does this mean when you hire people? What does it mean if they don't show up for work? What does it mean if they don't have any of that perspective? Yeah. And if you went through an educational process and that was part of the curriculum, I think people would have a better appreciation for what it means to commit to doing a job, showing up for work, and understanding their overall place in a company.
Yeah.
Alex?
I'm so excited about this topic. I was like, where do I start? Goodness, I think, yeah, you've all said stuff that I think is just makes a lot of sense. It's very accurate. My little disclaimer, I am on the advisory board for Humber College in their entrepreneurship program. And I think, and I'm really impressed by them doing that. And also, Will, to your point, we've talked I've talked to the Queen's folks in the MMIE program. I think that they have different names. I actually did one myself. Last year, I did the Masters of Innovation in Entrepreneurship at HEC Paris. So I also I'm just very into these programs. The one at Queen's is highly reputed, and there's some really great programs out there. So I think what's interesting is that, I think to just touch upon what Craig, you were just saying, it's kind of interesting because to me, entrepreneurship is a skill unto itself, much like innovation or creativity. It's not necessarily I think it can kind of be a standalone, and it's a skill set that you need to, as you were saying, you can learn the theory behind it, which is important to have frameworks and understanding, but there's the theory and there's the practice. So I think that there's been good progress the last couple years in the theory part, where we do see educational institutions, either formal colleges and universities, or a lot of, the accelerators and incubators themselves now are becoming a good source of that. All the VCs who are offering some kind of collaboration with, groups like a Futurepreneur, for example, right? Or some kind of startup community that gives them a lot of foundational entrepreneurship and startup knowledge and education. So I'm happy about that, because I think there's so much more. 5 years ago, there was nothing. 10 years ago, there was nothing really. And there's now a ton. But I think the gap is kind of what Craig was talking about in terms of the opportunities to practice. So we've hosted a few student groups from the entrepreneurship programs. I've had a lot of students come in either as interns, or we've done similarly, I think, to Bob, what you were talking about. We actually consulted. We did a pilot last summer. We had 5 of our consultants go to one of the entrepreneurship programs and do live sessions with them, with the students. I got to go in and we did some kind of team building. It was a lot of fun. So that was really great. But I think, to go back to Craig, what you were kind of saying, I don't want to be a downer about it, because I do see good progress. I think 10 years ago, people didn't consider entrepreneurship even as a career path, right? You're doctor, dentist, lawyer, whatever it was, this was nowhere even on the horizon. So I think the fact that people are even thinking about it and interested is progress. But, even with the programs, like you mentioned, I think Enactus is a great one. The Knowledge Society is pumping out all these brilliant kids who are 10 years old and going to take over the world because they're so smart. There are a million programs that are really great now to help us unearth these fabulous, mostly youth, but it can be any kind of student group. But the challenge is that they, as you said, they don't really have any learned experience or any context, any practice. And so that's kind of I think that that's where the onus becomes on us, and I don't know who the us is. So I'm kind of looking at Bob and looking at Craig, like, and Will, you do it too with your coaching, right? Like, we all in some part of this startup ecosystem, we all are interested in like coaching and growing startups. And I think that that's like something really valuable that we can all do individually and through our organizations, because I don't think that academic institutions can do that on their own. As brilliant and bright as they are, like, they're not, right? Like the profs are busy proffing. So they don't have time to be out in the field living the day to day to gain that experience. So I kind of see the opportunity as being complementary, I guess, between them, you know? So, and I think that's what's kind of neat and cool is that there are a lot of opportunities now, at least in Canada. I don't know so much about the global community, but in Canada, there are a lot of programs like government grants and opportunities that are really meant to help education institutions, public institutions, and then to partner up with some private partners to co-deliver some services. So I think that I'm hoping that we'll see even more of that kind of funding and progress, like an opportunity, so that then we can like partner up and pair it, because I don't think that the schools can do it on their own. Like, they also are tapped for resources. They don't have the time or the money. Right? Like, you know, colleges and universities are basically nonprofits, and none of them are running surpluses, or if they are, I would like to know their secrets. So, you know, there's, I think, good opportunity there, but a lot of work to be done.
Fabulous.
On that note, I have to tap out and go be.
Oh my gosh, we're over time. We didn't get
yeah. So why don't we wrap it up and not go to the fourth thing and say, Will, what are you working on? What do you got going on? What are you promoting?
I'm really excited. Two things. One is, speaking of DMZ, I'm doing their masterclass tomorrow night. So that's at the Sandbox downtown. They do these amazing free networking / 2-hour workshops. I'm doing one called Develop a Powerful Pitch tomorrow night. If anybody's interested, totally free. The other thing, which I'm really excited about, I just finalized this with 111. I'm going to be doing my Powerful Pitch workshop with them every month, I think. Hopefully, we're going to do a couple pilot ones to see how it works. But the inaugural one will be February 22nd at 111. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, that's the best way to get in touch with me, and I can send you the information. Still being worked out, but you know, that's going to be the new iteration of my work. Yeah, you can find me at Out Loud Now or Will Greenblatt at on LinkedIn. That's where I'll be posting about it.
Congrats, Will. That's very cool.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna come check some out for sure. And that sounds,
please do. Yeah, let me know.
And Alex?
I'm unprepared, so I did not think of anything. I guess what I'd like to promote is, drum roll, what we are very excited to be co-hosting with you guys, which is our co-founder match event happening on the lovely Valentine's Day. So I'm really looking forward to spending my Valentine's with all of you as my dates. And I think that's the one I'm most excited about, mentoringmagic.ca. Like, that's coming up. And Craig knows that we are also working on some exciting stuff in the, speaking of education, we're working on some stuff in the consulting and entrepreneurship education space, but too soon for me to say much more beyond that. And hopefully one of my lovely advisors and coaches here, Mr. Craig, if I can point in the right direction, oh, there's the auto camera, will be helping me work through some of the complexities of that. So hopefully by the next session, I'll be able to announce something really exciting from us there as well. Fingers crossed.
And Bob?
I am not working on anything, but I would like to share what my friends at Futurepreneur are working on, because again, I'm not represented with any brand or anything here. So I know Futurepreneur is working on this upcoming series of workshops called Owners Wanted. And the idea is to really help people understand how to buy their first business. Now, granted, we see that a lot in the tech space, but we're seeing that now fall towards the average mom and pop shop on that main street. And they're thinking, you know, how do I buy instead of starting up, how do I buy a business? How do I buy an existing business? What's the difference between buying and franchising? So I think if anyone is interested, I don't know what the link is, so you're welcome to email me directly, bminhas@gmail.com, and I will connect you with the Futurepreneur team who is doing that. But they're free. I think there's one happening this Thursday where some friends from Deloitte will be there to talk about, you know, how to look at buying a business. And then we're going to do another virtual one next month. And then And then in March, they're going to do a live one in Niagara Falls. So if anyone says, yeah, I kind of want to know more about buying a business, I will happily connect you with our friends at Futurepreneur. And I will, though, be joining your event in place of Alex, since she has other commitments on Thursday. So I'll be there. And yeah, and don't forget about our Valentine's Day event. Find love in a founder. I think that's what I'm calling it. So
that sounds great. Yeah, definitely. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Go to startupdrinks.com for our monthly networking investor drink event with open bar, open pitch. On Fridays, we record at 8 a.m. We record the Future Tech podcast on our YouTube channel, or you can just, subscribe to the Future Tech podcast. I also do daily episodes of Ask the Startup Coach, where I answer a single question that startups have along their journey. They're 2 to 5 minutes. They're easy to listen to or read. Also check out the Startup Talk podcast. It's all sorts of stuff. Some of these topics will be on the Startup Talk podcast, as well as interviews with startups. We talked about mentoringmagic.ca. That's a series of events we're doing with Consulta and Futurepreneur around mentoring. And the next one is February 14th, where we're doing a co-founder matchup. We've got some interesting stuff happening at that event. Go see the rest of it at torontostarts.com. We just launched a new web page, or new front page. That's great. If you want to work with me, go check it out there. That's about it. Thanks everyone for being part of Startup Faceoff. And let me check. We got one more comment here.
I think
apparently the Lord shall spot us.
I was reading that.
By God is something that I don't look forward to.
Well, as long as the Lord can join us on our next event. Hey, by the way, I've seen this a lot, Craig. This event and these things that you do. No one ever says thank you, Craig. And maybe actually, sorry, Alexa.
Alex. That's true.
Well, I want to say thank you for putting this together, organizing it, figuring out the tech, inviting us, some of us last minute, and otherwise we would have had the right clothes on. But thank you, because I will tell you, from all the things we've talked about now, we are seeing a shortage of people making impact like the rest of you on this call. So thank you for making that time on a Monday evening.
Well said.
Look at Bob being the best guy. All right. No, thank you, Craig. He's right. He's right.
I got
Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone watching.
Bye.